Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Street Sheet. This episode I'm bringing to you is with a new friend of mine, owner of Charlie Bags. Want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Charles Streitweiser. I'm the founder of Streitweiser Designs and the creator of Charlie Bag. We manufacture a 100% organic hemp tote bag. Streitweiser Designs is a company that specializes in woven, non-woven, and composite natural material designs. So we're creating products made from industrial hemp fiber with the goal of being the first company to produce a 100% grown and sewn product to the Pennsylvania market to support the Pennsylvania farmers, the Pennsylvania industrial hemp industry, and to perpetuate a cleaner, environmentally friendly future where we can use industrial hemp as a solution to solve the problem of single-use disposable plastic.
Wow, that was a lot, man. That was a lot. So let's just start at the beginning. Growing up for you, where did you grow up? How was it growing up? Just what was your experience like?
Oh yeah, thank you. I grew up in southern Chester County, Pennsylvania, which is relatively rural. It is in the mid-Atlantic region, so it's pretty close to New York, pretty close to Baltimore, Wilmington, DC. So I found that I'm pretty well located in terms of being able to reach larger cities, but I sort of grew up in a more rural area. Growing up, I was I was diagnosed with dyslexia. So I always had a hard time reading. Math was very difficult for me. So I always found that I had a lot more success in social situations than I did in the classroom. And I think that over time, that sort of enabled me to become much more of a people person. And I think that helped me develop into a better entrepreneur because obviously people skills are very important. You meet a lot of people, you have to have a lot of conversations. And I think that being genuine about these conversations is really what helps people succeed and move forward, because I think what you find is people want to help you and they just enjoy talking to you. So I grew up Southern Chester County, Pennsylvania. I enjoy being outdoors. I enjoy the woods. I enjoy sailing. I also enjoy working my hands. I have a small hobby of woodworking. Yeah.
Wow. So that was a big thing to come over after being diagnosed and actually becoming a people person. Like that's what you had to fall back on and become a people person. Were you always a people person, or you had to learn how to be?
I think that it came very naturally. I would definitely say that I am more outgoing, and I really enjoyed participating in larger activities. Going off to like summer camp was a really great opportunity to meet a lot of new people. Doing different activities. I was a Boy Scout. I'm an Eagle Scout.
Oh, nice.
So that was a really great opportunity. Being on sports teams and just meeting a lot of new people. Because I was dyslexic, I transferred schools a lot. So because I got very poor grades, some schools looked and they said, we don't have the resources to support someone. So I've actually been to about 11 different schools in my academic
Wow.
career. And you meet a lot of new people. You meet a lot of really interesting people. And I think that experience compounds on itself, so that the next time you go out there and meet more people, you have a really broad experience and knowledge base that you can relate to people with.
That's incredible. 11 schools. And that helps out with meeting people because, especially in a rural area like yours, that just it's everybody's there, like everybody from different parts of the world. So it's like not just one type of person you meet. You know what I
Definitely,
mean?
definitely.
Um,
Everyone is different.
Definitely. So did you have like a dream job while you were growing up, like something that you were like, this is what I'm gonna do?
Well, I think my first dream job was to be a garbage man. I
Really?
I mean, are you kidding me? Like, just you get to stand on the back of a moving truck and hop on and hop off. So I think that always really appealed to me. I think after giving up on my dream of being a garbage man, being an inventor was something I really enjoyed. I love taking things apart, and I wouldn't always get them back together again. But just sort of dissecting products or tools and seeing how they interact mechanically was really fun. And I think that's what sort of led me into being more of a hobby woodworker, and just really enjoying the quality tools and being to create something. Later on, as I got older, I think, the pressures of the world sort of come in on you a little bit, and you start to look at the world a little bit more critically. And I think a lot of people sort of choose a path that's offered in colleges. For example, like if they want to be a finance major, if they want to be a business major, or a scientist or something like that. So you sort of get to those more broadly generalized career paths, and you sort of have to start to pick and choose and sort of give up a little bit of yourself every single time. You say, okay, I'm going to push more in that direction because maybe the money's better, or because it's my parents want me to do, or my community. So over time, I felt myself being pushed more towards a business direction. But actually, what I found when actually studying business was that I hated it. I was just like sitting in a classroom studying business from a teacher was just like a really awful experience, because most of the time, or at least in my experience, some of these teachers are not necessarily business people themselves. So the subjects that they're teaching about is subject matter that relates to business, but much more on the side of working for a business, not necessarily starting your own business or venture. And so that was a perspective that I was kind of lacking. And so that's, I think, what ultimately drove me to sort of go out on my own a little bit and try to start my own business. And that's sort of how we got to the Charlie Bag and Streitweiser designs. But
Definitely. I feel the same way about the business classes because I took a couple in college also, and I felt the same way. Like they were always showing you how to fill in different roles, but never how the CEO gets stuff done, how to
there's no
actually
mindset.
start it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My next question was going to be, were you always an entrepreneur? And it seems like you were wanting to be an inventor. That's right there off the top, entrepreneur, even if you don't know it yet.
I think that's an interesting question. One of the people, and as a controversial character as he is, Thomas Edison is obviously a great American inventor. Whether or not he invented all of his products is up for debate, but I think what turned him into a successful business person was his showmanship and his ability to convey ideas and excite people about it, whether or not he created it. So I don't know if it's fair to say that I've always been an entrepreneur in the same way that people are, growing up doing lemonade stands and this kind of stuff. I think you'll find other people out there who definitely have that under their belt. But I think that to be an entrepreneur, it takes a lot of different skills. And I think that if you can have a healthy mix of at least, a basket of those skills, then I think you're headed in the right direction. But I definitely find that I'm the most fulfilled doing what I'm doing now because I'm exercising those skills.
That's awesome, man. So what was the idea behind Charlie Bag? Like, why bags? How did that even come about?
Yeah, so that's another really great question. And the best way I like to describe it is it actually came about because when I first decided to go into business, to start my own business, the way I describe it is I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what business to start. There's so much opportunity out there, and there's a lot of big headlines about tech or energy or all these different industries that are popping off, and it's just one person. You ask yourself, what's the impact that I can make, right? And that limits your list a lot more. That's it's a lot more difficult to do that. So when I was looking at it, I decided, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it in a way that is impactful to the community and to the environment, because I feel like that's a very important aspect of modern business. It should be profitable, obviously, but it should also be something that I can start off and make an impact myself without going out, taking out loans, putting together a team of people who've never worked together, and just sort of trying to hit the ground running before I even knew how to crawl. And so when I was looking for opportunities, this was about 2016, the 2014 Farm Bill had passed. So we had about 2-3 years of research going on at specific institutions around the country into cannabis sativa, which was legalized in the 2014 Farm Bill. And what was interesting about that to me was obviously everyone knew about cannabis, everyone knew about CBD or other cannabinoid derivatives like CBG, CBN. But what I thought wasn't getting enough attention was the fiber, the hemp fiber itself. And I looked at that, and obviously, everyone knows that there's like 1 million uses for hemp, but there wasn't very many people doing anything with it. So I thought this is a great pool of opportunity to jump into. And but again, it was, what can I do about it? And being someone who enjoys working with their hands, I thought, well, if it's a question of supply and demand, of supply for industrial hemp material and a demand for industrial hemp material, well, I can't necessarily supply it because I'm not a farmer and I don't have the money to become a farmer. But as an entrepreneur, as a wannabe entrepreneur, maybe I can try to exercise and teach myself some skills in sales and create the demand for the supply. And I felt that using that pull strategy rather than the push was a place that I could be more successful. And then the question, of course, comes, if you're going with that, what do you sell, a product or a service? And I felt, again, that to be selling a service wasn't within my purview. I didn't really have too much experience. But to make a product, something that you can stand behind and be confident in, then that's something I thought I could do. So what I actually did was I went out, I bought myself a sewing machine, I bought myself some material, some thread, I taught myself how to sew. And the reason why we started with a bag was simply because it was the easiest thing to teach myself how to make. And the other reason is because it's a high volume, low cost product. And when we're talking about supply and demand, if you've got more demand than supply, then your product cost is going to be lower. And if you've got less demand than supply, your product cost will be higher, or either one. Anyway, the point is the bag was an easy product to then integrate that material into. Now, it's not as simple as that, and that's what we're working on right now, and that is the mission of the company. But that was the founding principle behind it, and the way that we decided to enter into the market. So the bag is a vessel for us to move forward and experiment with new ideas. And in doing so, we've created sort of like a really great, the principles behind it were something to be utilitarian, something to be to last a long time, to be sustainable, and something that everyone could use all the time. So yes, that's how the bag came out.
Wow, so you actually went out. I thought you already knew how to sew and just, oh, let me try this out. So you actually, did you teach yourself, or like, did you take classes?
So I had, my mother had a sewing machine when I was younger, which I had played around on for a couple of years, and either I took it apart and never put it back together again, or she got rid of it. I don't remember what happened to it, but anyway, I hadn't sewed in probably, a decade, or not, maybe not a decade, but, something close to that at the time. So I had gone out and I had bought the cheapest sewing machine. And actually, it's a funny story. When I went to the store to go pick one out, I was speaking with the sales lady, and she was really nice. And I told her what I was interested in doing. And, she sat me down in front of this beautiful sewing machine, and she walked me through it. And I said, how much is this? And she said, it's $4,000. I said, wow. Do you have anything cheaper? And so she showed me the little Baby Lock Zest, which is what it was called. It was $100. And I said, this'll do. So she gave me the sewing machine, some thread, and some needles for like sewing a jean material. And so that was the closest thing to our hemp canvas material. And so I put it together. It comes with like a CD, but I was sort of able to figure it out pretty quick. And so the hardest part was really sort of taking apart other samples and figuring out what was the most efficient design, and also what was the most reasonable for me to make myself, because there's a lot of different designs out there. But what's realistic to make is a different story.
So how long did it take to get that blueprint down to say, this is the bag I want to make?
So the way that yeah, sorry, I'm gonna turn my shade off real quick. I'm sorry if this isn't good for the video.
No, you're good.
But it's the there we go. That might be a little better.
Yeah, definitely.
So the question was, how did you come across with the design? Well, or how long did that take? It wasn't too difficult to go out and do a little research and buy a couple little tote bags, and they're not very expensive, and just sort of take them apart, take the measurements off of them, and then transfer those either in half scale or full scale onto a blank sheet of material to then cut out and try to replicate. I would say it probably took about 2 weeks maybe to decide on on the initial design. And over time, the bag has evolved a little bit. So if you look at our earlier products, you'll see the signature yellow tacking on the handles and the interior facing seams. Whereas now our product, which is manufactured by a sustainable fashion house in Los Angeles, it features exterior seams and a box stitch for the handles. So it evolves over time, and whether or not that had to do with the manufacturer, whether it had to do with the aesthetic look, it's sort of a living document in that sense, which we like.
Definitely. So now you don't sew any bags, like hand sewn, it's all out through a manufacturer?
So that's a great question again, because here's the thing is when you start a business, right? I mean, you hope it's going to grow. And
Yes.
eventually I was getting so many orders that I couldn't make all the bags myself. And this was probably almost about a year ago now, where I remember coming back from school for Thanksgiving break. It was Thanksgiving break, thinking to myself, I've got like 30 to 50 bags to sew. I've got to get down to the basement and start making these things. Like I didn't have like any time to do anything else. So then you think, well, if you want the business to continue, I'm going to have to outsource, manufacturing. And then that brings up the whole exercise of going out, finding manufacturers, people who will work with you. And it's not as easy as you might think, because a lot of times these people don't want to work with someone who's just starting out. They want, reliable business. So
Definitely.
That's another skill as an entrepreneur, trying to sell yourself and sell your vision, because, until you can convince them to do it, they won't do the work for you. You can't bring your costs down and your quality up. So
how long did it take to find somebody? Did you go through a bunch of companies?
So the way we did it, which looking back, I think was a really great idea, was I had initially started reaching out almost blindly, trying to find people in the area who'd be able to do the sewing for us. Originally, the idea was to recruit ladies who were living in the town that I was going to school with, who were part of the sewing community. And I thought, well, if I can deliver them in like kits and have them sew them together in kits, then I can bring costs down that way. And I found that wasn't really the most efficient way to do it. And then I started sending some emails here and there to other manufacturers. But what really helped me, and I recommend this as a strategy that works for a lot of different things, was I went on a .gov website, and it's sort of a database of businesses. And you sort of you check off a checklist of what you're interested in looking for. So I'm looking for a manufacturer in cut and sew in these states, operating at this level or whatever. And it comes back with a list. And I got a list about 100 people who fit this criteria. So I wrote up an email, just one email, copy and pasted it for, almost 4 hours, just copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And, personalizing it where I could. And over the next, 2 months, I got reply after reply after reply after reply of people saying, we can't do this. We're either not in business anymore. We're not interested, whatever.
Yeah.
But if you start with a really big net, you're bound to catch some fish. And we got maybe 10 people who said they'd be interested. And then that's your short list. And then you whittle that down to maybe like 2 or 3. And then you send off samples, or you start to just sort of work from there. So that's sort of the best way that I found to do it.
So when you finally found someone, was there a lot back and forth, like them sending like a bag and you checking it out, making sure it's efficient?
Yep.
Was there a lot back and forth, or was it just like they sent like 2 and you were like, okay, this is good?
Yeah, that's another great question. So it's industry specific to the way that making clothes works in the fashion industry or something like that. There's sort of like a regulated path that you'll take where, you have a sample, you send the factory the sample and the pattern, and it's called like a sew by example. So you send them the material, you send them everything that they need to replicate the product that you want them to. And then they send you back their sample. You take a look at it, you say, yes, I like this. No, I don't like this. And then you sort of work from there. And then once they have a pretty good understanding of what it's going to take to make this, then you can start talking about pricing. You could talk about volume. And actually, we were talking about the exterior facing seams, the interior facing seams, the box stitches. That's something that came out of that process, which was, we got our first sample back from the manufacturer. And I remember being really excited. This was our first professionally made product. And I remember taking it out of the packaging, looking at it, turning it inside out, and being a little bit disappointed because, frankly, it looked exactly like what I made. And, I was hoping that they'd make something better than what I made. And it was only until I turned the bag inside out and had the seams facing outside did I realize that the bag that they sewed was better, but they were hiding the detail by having it inside out. Or having it being on the inside. So we turned it inside out. I sent him a quick email. I said, hey man, can we do this? This is perfect, but can we turn it inside out and put the handles on the inside? And he was like, sure, So that's how the product evolved into something and took a different form, but became better.
Definitely. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big process to go through, especially starting so small.
Yeah, it is. It's one that we're working on right now again too. We're in the process of searching for another partner, one on the East Coast. But it's always fun. It's a way to meet more people.
Definitely. So right now, is it just tote bags?
So we are doing just tote bags. We've done belts, we've done wine bags. We've got plenty of requests for a duffel bag. And right now we're working on 2 aprons. So we do custom work. So if people have requests, we're happy to accommodate. Usually we'll be able to help you out. But our main larger volume product is the tote bag. But we'll do custom work. So for example, if someone says we'd like an apron, well, then we can outsource that to a local artisan who can then make that for us. And then we can then provide that to you. So we like to remain agile that way. And it's a great way to workshop new products, because maybe we find another winner.
Wow, that's awesome. Do you have any employees under you? Like, I know you're a small business, but do you have employees under you?
So I'm really lucky to have a business partner. And it's something that I think is important for a couple of reasons. One of which is it's nice to have someone to bounce ideas off of. The other is that they can bring skills to the table that I might not have myself. So, on the one side, being dyslexic, having a business partner who's a little more analytical is really important. Also, someone who has different skill set or experiences. So, for example, my business partner comes from a background of corporate sales, whereas I'm much more on like a smaller side. And he's sort of on a more scientific, biotech background. So I think that having that diversity of ideas and being able to collaborate on projects like that, for example, that was really helpful for putting together a business plan, because that required a lot of sort of analytical thinking. That was a slower process, but it's something that helped us really organize our thoughts in the direction of the company.
Definitely. I have 2 questions, but first, before we go to your business part, we'll talk about the business plan. So I wrote a business plan in school for my entrepreneur class, and it took me the whole semester. How long did it take you to write your business plan for your company?
So it took probably, again, the best term I can use is a living document, where it's great to have it done, and it feels really good to have everything down on paper. But I think what you'll find is over time it needs revision. It
Yes.
needs to be adjusted. So I try to think of it as a living document. I try to think of it never being truly done. More of that we'll adapt it to what serves our purposes. But it took us probably 2 or 3 months, I would say, to get everything in a way that we really liked. And we were lucky because, I was digging through some papers that belonged to my grandfather after he passed away. And he had like 1 or 2 business plans. So I actually just used that as a template. I didn't, and you can look up templates online. It's not difficult at all. And I had met a gentleman who was in, he was in sort of like seed funding, or in, I guess that's not an angel investor, but something like that. And so I said, could you send us some information that you have on, how you grade these business plans, right? When someone gives you a business plan, how do you decide what is and what isn't good? So he was kind enough to send me his information, and that helped us sort of tailor the way that we worded things, or the order that we put our information. And I think what that did was bring a little more clarity to someone who's looking and saying, oh, here, I can see, this is how you're, structuring your profit. This is how your supply chain is, managed. This is how, this is who's doing this, who's doing that. So it was helpful to pull a lot of different documents from a lot of different areas, and that helped us write it. So it wasn't something where we sat down and had no idea what we were doing. We had references to work with. And that's sort of another thing that I would recommend everybody do is you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. There are so many great examples out there, and unless you're like infringing on copyright or whatever like that, no one cares. It's okay. So I think looking at other examples is a great way to learn and teach yourself.
Definitely. And like you said, it's always evolving. So like earlier you talked about how you're trying to get a partnership with someone on the East Coast that will be added to the business plan when it happens.
Yes.
Going back to your business partner, how did you meet your business partner? Did they see what you were doing, or was it from day one they were with you?
So that's a great question. So actually, the way that I got hooked up with my business partner is, so we had known each other before. We had been to the same high school. But we were never really friends. We were in a different grade. We maybe had one class, and that's how I think that he felt comfortable reaching out to me. But actually, he was one of my earliest customers. And that is why we started working together, was because what was, flattering on my side was that he had seen the value in the product. He wanted to support the business, and saw that there was room to grow. So he was actually one of our early customers, and then turned into our first business partner. And so I think that was a really great way for it to happen, because we didn't go out looking for someone. The person came to us. And so that really helped the relationship, and the thinking move quickly, because you want someone that is thinking along the similar lines as you. You want someone to challenge you, but you want someone who sort of sees the vision. And a lot of times, if you have someone that maybe has their own vision and wants to pull it in their own direction, I think that can cause friction. Yeah, yep.
No, I definitely feel you on that. You have to find somebody that fits you right, and it also helps out that you weren't looking for somebody. Sometimes the best things happen just out of the blue when you're not looking for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another question: how many bags would you say you sell at the moment, like on a regular basis?
So that's a good question. So basically, and go back to the business model, right? So when we first started the business, we felt that the best way to do this was to be B2C, so business to customer. And what we found is, we were having mediocre success where we would be selling products. We had started a website and we've shipped products to the website. But what I find the most successful means of selling our products has been B2B. So as a tote bag company, what we produce is a product which is customizable, and it can be used as a promotional product. So a company can say, we like this, we want to put our logo on it. So we've sold, I would say, the largest orders that we've had, largest single orders, are B2B, and that ranges anywhere between 10 to 30 units per sale. And B2C is usually like 1 or 2 at a time. So at the moment, I think we've sold over 100 at this point, and we're coming into our second manufacturing product cycle. So we're probably going to restock, either 100 to 200% of what we had before. So that's sort of the growth that we're at right now. So we're small, but B2B is definitely, I think, where the most growth is, and it's something that I can control because I'm talking to the owners. I can convey the ideas. And it's not simply down to just an ad or something like that.
Definitely. And it seems like every business uses tote bags when they have like a convention or they have an event and they like
Yep.
to put stuff in the bags. And that really helps you out when you're doing the business to business.
It is, yeah. And coronavirus was kind of an issue to begin with. We were pursuing a deal with a magazine. They were looking for a promotional product, and obviously they shut down. They couldn't do that anymore. But it's just such a large. There are so many opportunities for tote bags, so it's not something that we're, it's not too difficult to find buyers.
Definitely. I understand that. That was actually going to be my next question. How did the coronavirus affect your business?
Yeah, so that's actually a really great point, and I'm going to answer that in 3 different ways. So the first way was, we thought that it was going to be much more difficult, because obviously events was something that we were looking into. We really wanted to lean in that direction, and because everything stopped, we weren't going to be able to make sales that way. We still had a website. We still were running a social media, so we were putting out, content, and we were still generating interest that way. So I would say that initially we thought it would affect us. More realistically, it didn't really affect us too much because we had inventory at that point, so we weren't worried about our manufacturer, and we were able to continue to sell products. Now, we did run into a few issues, which was later on, our manufacturer was actually contracted by the state of California to manufacture PPE. So they had to shift, that actually helped them. So they grew by like 50% by the loans that they were getting from the state, the business they were generating for PPE. And what that ultimately did was help their business grow quickly. And that helps us too in a way, because when you're connected to another growing entity, then you're both able to sort of benefit from those perks that come. So for example, like hiring more people means that, you know, costs are brought down. And so that was something that was helpful. Now we did have a big event planned. We were really hoping to do that, and we had to scale that back to be compliant with the coronavirus guidelines. So, but it was a success at the end of the day, and everyone had a really great time, and everyone was very safe. And other things like trade shows, those weren't happening anymore, so that wasn't an opportunity for us to meet new people. But what happened was, that was an industry that had to adapt as well. So there are virtual conferences and virtual summits, and that's something we participate in. I was just in one last week. So that's something. And the last answer is the international supply chains were disrupted by coronavirus, and shipping costs went up. And inventory is piling up, or has been piling up, in large ports around the world. So what we're seeing now is countries and companies investing or seeing the value in a domestic supply chain and a short supply chain. And when you talk about domestic and a short supply chain, what you talk about is efficiency, and efficiency means profit. And so what I believe personally, and what I think other people believe as well, is that we're moving away from an older global economy, and we're sort of moving towards a more thoughtful, supply chain driven understanding of where our products are coming from. And this leads into, again, like, look at organic food, right? That's an example of where people want to have their food coming from, close by. They want to know where it's coming from. And this wasn't always the case, because, if you could get, really cheap products from China or from India or something like that, you're not too worried about it. But when costs go up, when it becomes competitive, this is where opportunity is.
Definitely. That, it looks like it didn't affect you guys a lot, which is a good thing.
Well, luckily we're not super large,
Yeah.
we didn't have to. So I'm happy about that. That was lucky.
Definitely. Because even though you're a small company, like, you're doing a lot of stuff, it seems like
Yes,
especially trying to, like you said, you got a partnership on the West Coast, you're trying to get one on the East Coast. You're still trying to find new ways of evolving the bag, as you said, maybe the duffel bag and stuff like that. So do you have any goals that are set for Charlie Bag, or
yeah,
are you not looking that far? Because some entrepreneurs don't like to think ahead. They just like to stay in the moment, and they're like, okay, let's grow it slowly. Or are you one that thinks like, in 10 years, I want to be in all these stores. I want to have my bag out there. Everybody has a Charlie Bag.
So that's another really great question. The best way to answer that is to say that when I started from the very beginning, the intention was to be an industrial hemp fiber as a substitute for single-use disposable plastic products. So the fiber and the long-term growth of the fiber industry is what we're interested in supporting through demand-driven or from the demand side. So our goal for the tote bag, is to be 100% grown and sewn of industrial hemp fiber from Pennsylvania, in Pennsylvania, to Pennsylvanians. So we're not there yet. We hope to achieve that goal in this year, in 2021. And we think we'll be able to do it. I think we'll be able to do it. And that requires a lot of work that we don't have control over. But what I can tell you is, having come from the Industrial Summit, having spoken with other business owners, we're headed in that direction. And that's really invigorating for us. Now that's on the Charlie Bag side. So what my goal for the Charlie Bag is to be made of Pennsylvania fiber that was sewn and sold in Pennsylvania. Now, Streitweiser Designs, which is our parent company, so the Charlie Bag is the product subsidiary, Streitweiser Designs, being a woven, non-woven, and composite design company, we open the door to a huge amount of possibility. So if you think, an example is the new BMW i8 vehicles. What people don't actually know about them is that the interior car panels are made of a hemp fiber composite.
Oh wow.
And there's a lot of opportunities in furniture. There's opportunities in, building materials. So what we see as our long-term goals is to supply the market with quality hemp products, whether that's a bag, whether that's a composite material, whether that's a non-woven in whatever form that takes. And there's a lot of money out there that wants to invest in this, that wants to put it to work towards sustainable, renewable solutions, but there's just not real investable opportunities yet. And that's what we're trying to build, is a company that is attractive to investors or to whoever that wants to drive this to the future.
Wow, that's insane. I never even thought about things like that. Like you said, like furniture or anything else being hemp. Like there's
Yeah.
so many opportunities out there that people don't even think of, that with your entrepreneur mindset, you're already having in your head, like, this is what I want to do.
Well, again, it's the way I like to think about it is, if you're a fisherman and you place yourself at the mouth of the river of opportunity, they come to you, but you have to be ready. You have to be strong enough. You have to have the right kind of bait and tackle. You have to have the business acumen to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. So, I know that we're not there yet, but every single day that we move in that direction, we're getting better, we're getting smarter, we're getting leaner. So we're able to catch more opportunity.
Definitely. And we're going to go back real quick because I forgot to ask you this when we were talking about when you first started up. How was it creating the bags and then shipping them yourselves? Were you spending a lot of your own money starting out?
So that's a great question. So when I started the business, I wanted to spend as little money as possible, right? I mean, I didn't want to go
As
out.
anybody, yeah.
I didn't want to take it out a big loan. I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do. And the reason why I bought myself a sewing machine was because, I felt that if I could do the work myself, then I would be saving that cost. And there are other ways to start companies like mine. Like you could go out and get a tech pack and you could have it made overseas and you could save money that way. But what I find is that is a much more of a marketing challenge and not an entrepreneurial challenge, because by going out and having a tech pack made for yourself, you miss out on the opportunity to meet manufacturers, to do the design yourself, and to sort of learn the harder little lessons along the way. So the way I approached it was, I want to do the work, and by doing the work, I save the money. Now, that's not to say you do have to spend money to make money, but what came out of that problem was the understanding that, that's where credit comes into. That's where that's where managing your assets properly comes into. That's where saying, maybe I can't afford to spend $100 on the fancy packaging now, but if I spend it on more material, then I can sell more bags and I can afford it down the line. So it's one of those things where you want to grow at a holistic pace, something that is not, because you can get a $50,000 loan and you can look brand new, but if you don't have a customer base, if you don't have people who are either repeat customers or fans of the brand, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. And so I think that's why people fall on their face. So the approach that we took or continue to take is slow and steady.
Definitely. I feel like that's where people hurt themselves trying to start businesses, when they do that, when they take the loans, especially when they don't have a foundation built yet.
Right.
Or do you have your products in any of the stores, like any stores right now?
That's yes, we do, and we're so proud of that. So, it's just like finding a manufacturer. It's hard to convince businesses to take your products on, especially if you're new. And what you learn along the way is, for example, here's another great example is, there are buyers for stores whose only job it is to find products. And if you aren't, paying for the list of buyers and their email addresses, that means that you're going out and talking to the business owners yourself. And what also helps is if you're already in a store, then other people are more willing to think about taking you on as theirs. So it's sort of like, it's almost like a trust thing where it's like, unless I see someone else trusting you, I'm not going to do it myself. So,
and it kind of helps out your chances when they see you somewhere else. They're like, you know what, let's see how
absolutely.
this goes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways to sell in stores. One is consignment, which is like no risk to the store itself. They simply just host your product, and if someone comes in, likes it, buys it, then the store will take a cut. There's wholesale, where they buy a large amount and then they sell them for retail. So that's another way that you can do it, and we can sell online, and we save the most money that way. But so we started out in a cafe, a small cafe, doing the consignment plan, where
Okay.
we built a display, we put our bags in it, we just left it there and hoped that someone would buy one. That has not been a successful location, actually, but it was more important for us to just be somewhere, right, and
have it out there.
Exactly. And so that, while it didn't represent a large monetary gain, it represented a huge step forward in the company, and brought it more into reality. And that's another way I like to think about it, and I recommend other people thinking about it, is every little action that you can do, every sort of physical manifestation of your business, whether that's designing a logo, whether that's bringing your product into a store, whether that's talking to someone on the street, anything you can do to bring your company, your idea, further into reality and cement it there, means that you're going to be sticking around for that much longer. So anyway, we started out doing that. The next place that we had our bags was, let me see here. We had the website, so the web presence was important. So online retail, and then we had our first B2B sale, which we then sold through wholesale, which was a small farm store, and they had bought a bunch of bags with their logo on it. We had done the insulated liner, and so because they're a farm store, they sold cold or frozen products. You could put it in there like a reusable shopping bag, and they also
Nice.
sell them in their store. So they're making a profit on. They own the bags. It's not our product. We don't get to do whatever. But that was another way we do it. And then right now we're working on continuing to develop our online retail sales, because that opens up. I mean, the internet is huge.
Yeah.
That's a different animal, because you're talking about advertising, you're talking about targeted ads. If you want to do that, personally, I'm not ready to do that, because it requires spending money upfront on something that you're not sure you're going to see results of, and I like to not spend money, and I like to have a little more control.
Yeah.
So that's a strategy we haven't done yet. We certainly will in the future, but and then other places as well. There's a company that we are looking into partnering with, a food delivery service that sells other products as well. So then selling through that. And most recently, one of our latest customers was another small cafe. They actually bought the products to be used, not sold, but used in their store. They're a cafe and market, so they sell products. And what was really great about that for us was it was an incarnation of an original dream for the product, which was not to be a fashion item, but to be a utility that was used, that was it was meant to be it was meant to be used regularly. It was something that we wanted someone to rely on. That's why we made it with quality design in mind. So to see it being used as a reusable shopping bag, reducing waste, but also just being part of the company, helping their business, something that they rely on. Because if if you have to keep spending money on new bags all the time, then you're not retaining those earnings. So that was really great for us. That's why I really feel good about that being there.
That's awesome. You keep saying this whole interview. You've been saying, "Oh, we're a real small company. We're a real small company," and you're telling me all these places you're at. Even though you are a small company, you're putting in the hard work to get places where you want to be, and people are actually seeing it, that they're putting it in their stores.
It's fantastic. And I'm not gonna lie, what I think is really valuable, and what you don't necessarily learn from school, is that there's a business community. There are people, and if you're doing business locally, which we're starting out local, there's three sort of levels where you think there's local, national, and local, regional, and national. And obviously we're focusing on the local first. We'd like to move into regional and then national. But when you start to become a member of your business community, you meet new people, and these people are similar to yourself. They want to help you as other people have helped them. And so, when you put yourself out there, the opportunities start to emerge. And so there's a lot of people out there that are really happy to help you. And so we've not done everything by ourselves. We've had help from other people, but it's because they've responded to what we're doing.
Definitely. So this was my final question. It was gonna be, are you gonna stay strictly online, or is the goal to be in a store? But right now, the way you answered your last question seems like you're gonna stay online for a bit and get your online presence going.
So yeah, I think the answer is we'll find out. I don't have I don't want to be too concrete in saying, this is one direction, that's the other direction.
Yeah.
We're not going to think about it. What I like so much about it is, having the time to let it evolve naturally and take the path of least resistance. Like water runs downhill, so where the opportunities come, no one could have predicted coronavirus, but opportunities came out of that. So whatever comes down the road, whatever happens next, we're going to try to adapt to that and serve the market in the only way we know how.
That's awesome, man. If you have one thing that you wish you knew before becoming an entrepreneur, like one thing that you can tell young entrepreneurs that haven't started a business yet but want to, what's the one thing that you have learned you wish you knew?
I think the thing that held me back the longest, and I think the thing that holds most people back, is not knowing where or when to start. And the only answer or the only advice I can give is don't think too hard about it. Just do it. Just start anywhere, whether that's, imagining what your website is going to look like, sketching it out on paper, whether that's, talking to someone who's maybe in the field, or, building a prototype. It's just start anywhere and let it start from there. You have to plant a seed, and I think sometimes you can be afraid to plant the seed because you're afraid it might not grow.
Yeah.
But there's always more seeds,
No, I 100% agree. That's something that I always preach now, because I've started my podcast, but this podcast should have been started before I even graduated college, which was June 2019. So I had this idea doing it in the radio station in school, never did it. Graduate, was like, I must do this podcast. Gonna do this podcast. Didn't start till February. Had interviews lined up to do in person. COVID hit, and then kind of hurt me a little bit. And then I was working from home, had so much going on, and now I'm actually like, I just have to do it. Like, just have to go out and do it. And I feel like that's a lot with entrepreneurs. Everybody's held back with, will this work? Will this not work? You just have to do it and find out for yourself.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate being able to help you and support you, and certainly you supporting me in this way. You've got the skills to do that. I've got the skills to talk about hemp bags. So it's been really fun. I appreciate it.
I want to thank you for coming on to the show and just being a guest and telling your story. Like, I felt like you had an interesting story, and you definitely did. Like, we met on Instagram. I followed you one day because Manny came over to record a podcast, and he had the bag, and I was like, wow, that's a very nice bag. He's like, oh, my Sophie's brother makes it. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And then started following you, and then it's a nice product, and you're doing a lot, and it deserves to be shown. That's the whole point of this podcast. I want to put people on here that don't get the recognition they deserve.
Yeah, totally. And I think you have to. It's when you've got nothing to take, all you can do is give.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So just ending up this podcast, thank you again. Can you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're local to the Chester County area, you can buy a Charlie bag at the Foxy Loxy Cafe. You can go to the Junction Cafe. You can go to the Bailey's Dairy, which is in Pocopson, the Bailey's Dairy at Pocopson Meadow Farm. Or you can go online to www.charlie-bag.myshopify.com. You can see our beautiful website. We've been working on developing that, and we're really proud of it. You can contact us through Instagram. You can DM us directly, and we'd be more than happy to send you it. And with each order, you get a 100% organic hemp tote bag made to last, and the packaging it comes in is reusable as an insulated liner. And so we're reducing waste that way, and you can feel good about your purchase.
You guys are just reusing everything. That's awesome, man. Thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. This was another episode of the Street Sheet. Thank you guys for listening. Go subscribe. Go comment on Instagram. Like the pictures. Like the videos on YouTube. Just do anything you can to support, and also go check out the Charlie Bags and go order one. Go order one. Right? Why not? Right?
Thank you, Joel. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, man.